Oh boy, Kyle Dubas, man. You can't be serious. That was the ask? Today we are talking about one of the most ridiculous trade prices that was set out there on the market, and what it would have costed the Detroit Red Wings had they gone out there and tried to make this move. Let's head over on to Pittsburgh, because they had themselves a game earlier today against the New Jersey Devils where they absolutely smoked them. 7-3 win for the Pens against New Jersey, and if you take a look at some of the guys that produced for the Penguins today, you'll see a very particular name stand out as the 3-1 goal guy. Rickard Rakell, scoring at the .424 mark in the second with a wrist shot assisted by Connor Timmins and Sidney Crosby. Now, Rickard Rakell was a really interesting name heading into this year's trade deadline period because not only has he been a monster for me in my fantasy hockey league this season as a triple threat left wing, right wing center, but he is also on a contract that takes him till 2027-2028 at $5 million a year. Yeah, that's right. You thought I was going to say he was on an expiring deal? Nope. His contract goes on for a while, which is in part why he was one of the more valuable trade targets this trade deadline period, because he's a good player. And at 31 years old, he's gone out there with 59 points in 68 games played this season, on pace for 70 in an 81-game campaign. That would be a career high for Rickard Rakell, who has always been a very stable point-producing force in the Anaheim Ducks system, and then he headed over to Pittsburgh, where he was stable and strong as well. So while Jake Guentzel and Michael Bunting both ended up leaving the Penguins, there's a bigger role here for Rickard Rakell, who earlier on in the season was playing very well alongside of guys like Brian Rust, for example. This is a really strong scorer with term. So you could imagine that Kyle Dubas was probably not all too keen on trading him away. But now, we have ourselves a deal that would have been on the table. Because if we head over onto this article published on Pittsburgh Hockey Now by Dan Kaniewski yesterday, it's Dan's Daily. It goes out there and talks about an analyst who has ripped the Penguins' trade price for Rickard Rakell. The language is kind of confusing here, but essentially there was the trade price that happened to be revealed by none other than Daily Faceoff's Frank Saravalli. This article will be linked in the description, as is our ExpressVPN affiliate page. Check out that first link to save some money on your VPN, get some free months, and support this YouTube channel in the process. Take a look at this. On the Daily Faceoff Live podcast, Saravalli reported that Dubas set the price on Rakell at a top prospect and 2 first-round picks. Saravalli, on the show, then ripped Kyle Dubas for the ask. Kaniewski on this article then responds saying this: "My expected price tag on Rakell was some combination of a first-rounder, a good prospect, and an NHL player." Saravalli reported that Edmonton was interested, but they balked at the sticker price. If the Penguins could have snagged Matthew Savoie and a first, that would have been enough. I really like Savoie at the 2024 Memorial Cup, and I felt that he inflated Braden Yeager's offensive totals at Moose Jaw. Savoie is a 25-goal creative offensive force and defensive headache in waiting. And appropriately so. You are starting to see a whole bunch of response as to Kyle Dubas' asking price for Rickard Rakell. As I said, he's been a good player this year. 31 goals, he's on pace for near 40, and he has been a super important player for Pittsburgh. But there's an extra detail that Kaniewski left out on what Saravalli said about the trade price, and that was highlighted here on Twitter by NHL Trade Alert. On the DFO Rundown show, Saravalli says the Penguins' ask on Rickard Rakell at the deadline was each team's best prospect and 2 first-round picks. Not just a prospect, but a team's best prospect. And with that in mind, this response from Red Wings Radar goes out there and said this would have costed the Red Wings Axel, Sandin, Pellikka, a 25 first and a 26 first. Ridiculous. All for one Rickard Rakell? Like, this is the total opposite of one for all. Oh my gosh, thank goodness the Red Wings weren't in on this guy. Right? I mean, of course, no disrespect. Rickard Rakell's fine, and his GM is capable of labeling whatever asking price it is that he wants for the guy. But there is absolutely no way in hell anybody would have felt comfortable with that sort of a trade price, and thus, he didn't get traded. Plain and simple. There's no way that would have gone through. Imagine if Stevie Y went out there and pulled off a Rickard Rakell trade, sending away Axel, Sandin, Pellikka, and 2 firsts for 1 forward at 31 years old. I don't care how many years Rickard Rakell has left in his contract. I don't care how good he's going to be for the remainder of that contract. Unless you're getting some Connor McDavid level top-tier superstar asset, you're not paying Axel, Sandin, Pellikka and 2 firsts. I guess what this goes to show us is that Kyle Dubas really had no intention whatsoever on trading Rickard Rakell at all. He might have been convinced to trade Michael Bunting, he might have been convinced to let Jake Guentzel go, but not Rakell. For whatever reason, I guess. Maybe that Sidney Crosby-Rakell connection is too strong that Kyle does not want to go out there and piss off Sid in any way. Hey, we're going to trade away your line mates now. After we make these trades to send Letang away, and then Malkin's going to leave, and then Carlson's gone, you're going to be the last guy left. Like, I don't know. They didn't trade away any of the guys that Sidney Crosby likes, so I guess they're over here paying a solid to the Penguins captain, which does make sense in a way, but it does kind of create some wonky asking prices, like Rickard Rakell for 2 firsts and the team's best prospect. I mean, I would actually be quite intrigued at the idea of Axel, Sandin, Pellikka learning the ropes of the NHL game with Erik Karlsson as his mentor. Does anybody else not feel super intrigued by that? I think we've talked about the idea of Karlsson heading over to Detroit in previous videos, so that certainly would be at the top of my priority list if you were to find ASP and Karlsson on the same team at any point in their careers. Karlsson's still fine. I mean, he's just a few years removed from scoring 100 points in a season after all. Maybe he's not that good anymore, especially on Pittsburgh, but imagine if Axel, Sandin, Pellikka learns the ropes of being an offensive defenseman, a triggerman, a pure power play quarterback at the NHL level from Erik Karlsson, local countryman, local top-tier NHL offensive D-man, and a guy who, even at his young age, was not able to break what Axel, Sandin, Pellikka has done in the SHL this year. We all recognize that Erik Karlsson is arguably the best offensive defenseman of our generation. Maybe not this generation, but the previous one, the 2010-ish era generation of NHL hockey. He was the best. And that guy definitely has a thing or two that he can share to ASP. So if Kyle Dubas, in some respect, were to add on 2 picks and Axel, Sandin, Pellikka for Rickard Rakell, I guess it would make sense if they're acquiring the younger guys that they need. But at the end of the day, that's a total ripoff for Detroit. I'm sorry, Rakell, you've been fantastic, but you're just not that good. I guess your team just really didn't want to trade you after all. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Rickard Rakell and the crazy asking price that Kyle Dubas had, and whether or not Stevie Y and the Detroit Red Wings would have or should have decided to pay it off. Do you think this would have been profitable for either side? Do you think the Red Wings would have totally gotten ripped off here? Let me know in the comment section your thoughts on Rickard Rakell as a player and whether or not the asking price is fair. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.